Hey everybody, you ready for a little bit of brutal truth? Here we are, we just finishing up Q1. It's time to take a step back, time to rethink what we've been doing and how we've been doing it because the first quarter of the year is now over. Now we got to dig in and see where we are and where we can go. Today we're going to be talking to somebody who came out of the performing arts, got into sales, and now is helping other sales reps through sales enablement and coaching become better. So we're going to talk through that process. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think you're going to learn that the practicing, the taking feedback, the getting better every day to break your game down into certain skills, to practice those skills and then aggregate them back together to make every day in sales a little bit better. I think too often we get stuck thinking that, we're good enough and we don't need to warm up, we don't need to practice, and guess what? Something goes wrong. And then it's too late. The game's over, and we didn't win. I hope you had a great Q1. Before we get into the interview, I want to make sure you're checking out Pipedrive. Pipedrive with the coupon code Brutal Truth will get you 60 days free access to it. You get the calendar, so you can get people on your calendar automatically. You get integration with your email, and you get an easy-to-use CRM. Super easy. And you need a personal CRM even if you're using something else at work. Also, make sure you're checking out Nudge, nudge.ai. It'll show you how you're connected to the accounts that you want to get in. And that way, it'll make it so much easier to see that relationship. And we're going to talk a little bit about it in this episode. I got some other ones that are coming up about why relationships matter. And it's not that fluffiness. It's really how our brains work. That tribal belief of either you're known or unknown, and how to break through that to connect with people so that the communication becomes open, honest, sincere. So keep tuned into the Brutal Truth. I got a lot of great episodes that I'm ready to drop. Going to keep up the pace here into Q2. Going to help you. But do take a little bit of a moment. Look back at the quarter and see what went wrong, see what went right. Because I've been through quite a few Q1s, and there's definitely a pattern. You get a lot of kickoff meetings, you get a lot of transition, a lot of change, a lot of adjustment. At the same time, you're supposed to be crushing your number, building your pipeline, and staying psyched. So spend a minute, reflect on that. And at the end of the interview, I'll sum it up and I'll give you an update on what's going on my end. Here we go. Hey, Chad, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Chad Dyer. I'm Director of Enablement at OnDeck, which is a fintech company located in New York City. The enablement team here is one of the most fun adventures I've ever been on because we got to create the team starting at the beginning of last year and build some fun things like coaching, our first sales tech stack, and figuring out how all this fun stuff that I used to do in startup world works in fintech world now.
So you're really getting to use your degree and applying it to your career?
Mostly in the shower these days, but I think a lot of it is really applicable.
Is it?
Yeah.
Keeps you calm?
There's a lot of discipline that you learn. So my degree is in classical performance. I was an opera singer earlier in my career. But the discipline that I learned, and then a lot of the things that relate to like math skills, like all of the complex like musicology courses that I took really activated my math brain, which is a big part of what I did in sales operations and also in enablement, because a big part of my role is really, chopping up data and making data-driven decisions when it comes to our projects for enablement.
Well, I would think as a performer of any kind, because sales I view is a performance profession, as opposed to a functional profession like accounting, where every day it doesn't really matter how good you did yesterday. You're there, you're in front of somebody, you have to converse with them, you have to engage with them. And that, I think, is an art form.
I agree. I haven't really looked at it that way, but that is absolutely true. And the other piece that I used to bring into it back when I first started selling, almost 20 years ago, part of the way that I overcame some of my nerves was to create these like actor personas and use these accents. And I would be different types of people as I was doing my inside sales role. And in doing that, I learned how to relate to people in all these different ways. And then I became more and more confident just being myself over time. Of course, I do turn the accent up or down depending on what part of the country I'm talking to.
And that's part of mirroring, right? It's part of connecting with people from different cultures, different speech rates, different interests.
Absolutely. And that's the part where my training comes in handy, because I had to play a lot of different characters from a lot of different places and spend time walking a lot of different people's shoes before I would get up on stage and try to present that to an audience. And that's a lot of what the sales role really is. It's listening to people, mirroring them, but also asking them all the right questions to have a true understanding of where they're coming from so that you could really pair a solution with their need.
Yeah, that brings up the empathy thing. And that's, which seems to be a critical element to be successful in sales, because too many reps want the other person to understand them instead of them understand the other person.
Yeah, I think empathy is a critical skill in sales, and it's something that you have to work on like daily. I mean, even one of the most recent workshops that I'm working on with my team is just active listening, and we brought in some improv exercises to really teach people to quit thinking ahead, to quit trying to figure out what the next step in this sales conversation is going to be, and really listen and try to understand and ask the right questions to go down the path that creates the relationship. Because that empathy creates that bond, that trust that you have. And those long-term relationships are how you're able to keep going back into that same business and build that like renewal relationship over time.
I get that. And what I see today is people trying to pitch or personalized without really understanding what the other person cares about.
Yeah, the copy and paste personalization.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens to me every day. So of course I am the target of many SDRs and salespeople as someone who owns technology for my division. So I get lots of that. Here's the last thing that you posted on LinkedIn, and I copied and pasted it and said, wow, this is interesting. And then try to pitch me something. So yeah, there's a big difference in copy and pasting the last thing that I said and then giving me one little sentence, then in doing what you did, which is actually read my profile and come to me and talk to me about something that means something to me. Bringing up performance near and dear to my heart. I spent, more than a decade of my life, all of my expensive education that my mom always says, spent a lot of money on those degrees to not be up on that stage anymore. But so it is important.
Well, I also see that any art form, you have to take coaching. I mean, it's all about being coached. I mean, you probably did spend some time in your bedroom performing, but the real learning was on stage, getting a lot of feedback, and you have an audience that, especially when it's live, you get immediate feedback.
Oh yeah. And you fall down a lot and you mess up and you have some really interesting stories of things that dropped on your head while you were performing or at the time that you forgot the entire song when you were singing. So there's a lot of, there's a big learning curve to being able to be comfortable and be yourself and be free. The other part of that is the preparation that comes from coaching, working with people who have more skill or a different skill than you and are able to really help you understand what you're great at and where your areas of opportunity are. And one of the coolest things that I got to work on with my team and with all the sales leadership last year was building a coaching culture here and really focusing on diving into calls and sales, like the core competencies of what a great salesperson should be. And figuring out what those are, putting them on paper, and then starting to hold people accountable to them to say, wow, you're really great at 3 out of the 5, but here's the 2 where there's an area of opportunity, and let's figure out how to get you there so we are consistently good at sales across the company, and we don't just have these popcorn star performers who we think are just, unicorns somehow magically out of the forest on the sales floor hitting their number every month when other people aren't.
And that's it, because it is learnable. And I think as long as you are coachable, as long as you can take feedback and you don't, take it as a personal insult. You take it as someone trying to help you become better at your profession.
Well, the best way to coach someone is to ask them the right questions so they figure it out for themselves.
Yeah.
So back in the day when I was taking voice lessons, someone can't crawl into my body and sing for me and help me understand the mechanics of singing. They had to ask me to demonstrate something, ask me how it feels. Is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? Are you making the sound that you feel is the best sound you can make? And I think that's exactly what we do with salespeople. We listen to those calls and say, hey, what went well? What is an area of opportunity? What do you think you could have done a little bit better? And when we find these consistent things that they're doing really well, then that's a great praise opportunity. You're leading the team when it comes to this. And then the other side of that is the challenge, which is, hey, you're consistently missing this trial close. you have an opportunity to pin them down with a couple of more questions, and you're really not doing that and consistently missing that piece. We're going to be able to get more deals through the funnel if you start trying this and this and this. And we've seen that happen. Like great example is Andy on our sales team working with his manager, Dan, was struggling with figuring out how to set up an appropriate trial close. And over time, when he got more confidence and he started doing it consistently and it started working, he started closing more deals and became one of the leaders on his team.
That's it. Now, I never really thought of singing and talking have a lot in common, especially when you're talking in the context of a sale, where you should have a consistent structure that you take people through. You build a little bit of rapport, build some curiosity, some interest, a little urgency, and then some action.
Absolutely. I mean, I would never walk onto stage before I've learned a song any more than I would pick up the phone to call someone before I've learned what the sales process or sales script should be.
Yeah. And instead of it being all about you, because talking is interactive. I guess singing would, if you think of it as like an opera where there is a musical or something like that, where it is interactive.
I think singing is the most collaborative sport because you're dependent on absolutely everything around you. Your costume, the way that you look is how you interpret the character, the people on stage with you that you have to sing at the same time with, the orchestra that's supporting you, the energy of the audience in the room. And I think sales is the same way. There's a lot of different factors: the script, the energy that surrounds you, what's up on your computer screen, what's happening on the other end of the phone. All of those things play in the same type of way as a performance, which is if you don't have everything ready before you put yourself in that situation, you're not set up to be successful.
So in your career, when did you make that switch from, or was the marketplace do it for you to go from singing into selling?
No, actually, I just wanted to take a break. It wasn't even a conscious, hey, I'm retiring and I'm done. And I actually performed up until just a couple of years ago. I did my last show. I did the opera La Boheme and the musical Rent down at Glow Lyric Theater in South Carolina back in 2014. And that was my last year performing just 5 years ago. So I did both for a long time. And I think when I started my first sales job, I thought it was going to be just let's make some money and take a break and rest my voice and live in the same place for a little while. Because, opera singing, you have to travel, miss my family, miss my friends. So I settled down in Atlanta, performed with Atlanta Opera, stayed in Atlanta, got a sales job at Reed Construction Data, which was a company, part of Reed Elsevier, and was just on the phone doing inside sales, and it energized me in a way that I didn't expect it to. I thought it would be boring calling 100 people a day, and I thought it would be, just a thing I did for a finite amount of time to make some money before I got back on stage. But, cut to all these years later, and I'm just as passionate about sales and enablement as I ever was about singing.
And what about enablement do you like?
I look at enablement as being one of the more experiential influences when it comes to the sales organization, because I get to focus on things like training and skill development and building really cool technology to support the sales process and engaging with salespeople to help them just be better at what they do, be more passionate about what they do, help them develop what their path is going to be forward. And I have a really weird and interesting path. So I feel like I open up possibilities for people, because I was a sales guy and a sales ops guy, and I have some marketing ops people on my team. So I learned a little bit about the marketing ops experience and then enablement. So you can go in a lot of different directions with the skill of sales, because a lot of people feel pigeonholed. You're like, I'm a sales guy. What is a sales guy? A sales guy is a person that sells, and that's all they can really ever do. And I'm living proof that you can do a lot more, that you can go in a lot of different directions and find things that are interesting to you and really focus on, like, full circle, the empathy, the building of relationships with people. And I like to do that internally now. My customers are the people that I work with. They come by my desk and want to have good conversations about what it means to be great at selling.
Well, let's talk about that. What does that mean at your company and to you to be great at selling?
I think it's different than it's ever been before right now, because we have so much noise in all the sales channels, so many different types of sales in and out, so many different types of contact. So I like to boil it all the way down to just like the core competencies of a good salesperson. And that really is build great relationships, be able to challenge people and challenge what they need, and then be able to ask with confidence for them to give you money, and you're going to give them some service that's going to bring greater value than what they're giving to you. And I think at the root of it, those are the three things. I mean, I'm also reading the Challenger Sales Method book again right now to just get back a little bit more into my old school philosophy of sales. So that's top of mind when I'm talking about this.
Yeah, because that is kind of counter relationship. Well, I guess I've had some issues with that book.
I can see that. I mean, it's some parts of it do feel a little bit like it's not going to fit absolutely everyone. Like it feels like one of those too good to be true methodologies.
Well,
This will always work.
I had a similar issue with spin, and I happen to know the former CEO of that company, and and the research was a little baked, and it was everything is contextual, meaning that what I sell and what you sell are different, so we're going to think of selling differently.
When I have to actually make it apply to fintech, because we sell something very different than most of the people that are working in all of, like, not even just the books and the people who wrote the books, but all of the data that they're pulling comes from companies in a really different sales culture than the sales culture that I'm in. So what I like to do is read a ton of different books and then pull out things that I think are meaningful for the team. And then I build workshop trainings based on those things. Like, I love the book Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss, the book on negotiation. I think it was like all the rage last year. And it's easy to pull just a couple of really great ideas out of that, turn it into a workshop and skill up your salespeople on negotiation tactics without giving it to them and saying, this is the Bible, go forth and sell this way forever.
And that's it, because I've always looked at it as, a structure, a sequence, and then you fill the skills in for each stage of the sequence.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But one of the things that I'm focused on right now is I don't want my sales team to just be great at selling at on deck. Because I think that's one of the things that some companies, it's either a great thing or a bad thing, and depending on what you're doing and how many different places you can work with that specific skill set. Yeah. But I'm really focused on the general skill of sales and then building those relationships and understanding what sales means on lots of different levels instead of just being really good at sales here. Because I think you can be really good at sales here. You can sell the thing that we sell, the way that we sell it. You can memorize the scripts in the playbook, have similar conversations with similar types of businesses, and be really successful here for a long time, and then go somewhere else, walk in the door and sit down, and basically not be able to do anything there because you don't have translatable sales skills. You've just learned how to do the thing your company does. So one of the things I want to do is just figure out what the broader skill set of sales is and bring that to the team here and say, when I leave, I'm going to be great at discovery. I'm going to be really great at closing. I'm going to be really great at really going through documents and really taking them apart and saying, this is what I see. And it might not specifically be a part of your job day to day, but it's a skill set that you should have. Like, I'm not a lawyer, but I have to read all the contracts that I get for any of the sales tools that I'm implementing at my company. And in doing that, I can start to spot things that I know are going to be things that that are going to be challenged in our red line process. I think the same thing is true for sales. You need to be able to look at the whole profile of the business that you're talking to, the prospect or the customer, if you're working through the long tail, the life cycle of sales, and really be able to break that down and add some value and be that consultative, like, challenger sales guy.
And that's it. And I think too many people focus only on getting stuff into the pipeline instead of getting it out of the pipeline.
Yeah, I learned a word from Jake Rennie when we were at Unleashed over in San Diego a couple of weeks ago called force casting, where you like to force things into the funnel.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think people like to make sales into math. And the only problem is you're dealing with people. And it's like making psychotherapy into math. It just doesn't fit very well unless you're doing something that's really simple and transactional. And once you start doing that, then all of a sudden what you end up doing is making the event fit the math instead of really building a business.
I couldn't agree more. I've lived on both of those sides because the math is one of my favorite parts, is taking that data and building a predictive model and feeling like you're right. So I think that's a part of my RevOps days, was really just like, I want to build the model that we land on that says I'm right. But then I also realize I'm also forcing some of these systems to fit that model so that I am right. So it becomes more about me being right about a number than us growing the business. So yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the goal is always to blow the number out, to challenge people to do twice as much as they've done before, because they can if they do the work, and then to provide the system for them to work in that gives them the opportunity to exceed at all times. And I think that's what a good enablement team does, is we set the sales team up for not just a little success, but a ton of success, to be able to manage more business, to do it quicker, and to build greater relationships, because you don't have to worry about some of the minutia that a lot of salespeople have to worry about when there's not a strong enablement team really behind them, giving them the content, the training, and the tools they need to be successful in their roles.
And we talked a lot about skills, but how about like mindset or motivations or backgrounds?
Okay, where do you want to start?
Start with what you've learned. I mean, because I think we learn most from our mistakes, like hiring mistakes, having a file too wrong.
Oh my goodness, yeah, 100% for sure. I used to be called the Axeman back in my days at Toshiba because I had to fire so many people because I wasn't great at hiring earlier in my career. You could come in and win me over as a person and be terrible at sales because I was looking for all the wrong things. I just was impressed with people, and I still am. Like, I am surprised and delighted by human beings every day. I live on the streets of New York where I interact with uncomfortable pedestrians every day because I'm Southern and just interested in people. So I'm an easy person to win over in an interview, and it took me a long time to really build out a structured interview that helps me get to the meat of the matter, whether or not someone's going to be a good fit for the sales culture and the sales role. But I mean, the mindset part is just, I can do it. If you meet somebody that comes in and they're already making excuses before they even get offered a role, that's not a person that I'm ever going to want to work with. I want to work with people that believe the impossible can be done and that are willing to do the extra work to get there. And the team that I have right now, that's personified by every single member of my current team. They stretch beyond belief every day when they're here, and they open and unlock all these opportunities because of the work that they do and because of the willingness they have to try. So I think mindset's very important. And I think you have to really be, I mean, it's all the characters I played when I was like the heroic tenor in my young opera career. I was always just bright-eyed, believing that the hero's journey was possible and that I was going to get the girl and slay the dragon and all the other things. And those are the types of personalities that really jive well with how I work today.
I guess you have to be, because the roller coaster of sales, you have to have the belief that it will work, that you will make your number, that you will find somebody to buy after you get hung up on. It's like,
yeah, and it's also the camaraderie. We're all arm in arm on the floor, working together in the trenches day to day, and these support teams sometimes can be almost in opposition with sales. Like we're inflicting something upon them that's going to make them have to do something uncomfortable or take extra steps in the process, and they want it to be simple and easy, and they really just want to sell. So I think one of the ways to be successful as like a rev ops or an enablement team is sit with the sales team. Absolutely sit with the sales team. That's first and foremost. But also learn what they're doing day to day, get into their process so that when you offer value, it's because you offered it consultatively and not because you're the smart person that sits over there that has a different title. A lot of the success we have bringing new initiatives to the team is just sourcing things from them and then finding those solutions, getting their buy-in. And then when we put something new into their process or give them a new tool to use, they're excited about it because a lot of it feels like it was their idea or they're part of the team that decided that was the right direction to go in. So I think it's straight back around to building relationships and empathy, really understanding that the day-to-day of the salespeople allows you to add a lot more value to their life as an enablement leader.
And how do you develop the coaches? Do you teach them questioning techniques? Because usually sales leaders don't make great coaches.
Yeah, sales leaders generally are superpowered salespeople who just want to get back into the deal. So they add value by picking up the phone and talking to somebody later in the cycle. That's not our approach here. We spent a full year developing our coaching process. And step one was just agreeing it's important. Step two was, what are we doing today that resembles it in any form or fashion? We're listening to calls. How are we listening to calls? What kind of conversations are we having afterwards? And then we put a structure in place. And then we added technology. I mean, that's my approach. Talk to the people, get their buy-in that it's important. What are you doing today? How can it be better? Process. I hear what you're doing. Let's try these couple of steps, this framework, and see how it sets us up for success, or at least gives us better information consistently across all the coaches so we can calibrate who's doing what and what's working. And then the technology comes in to really expedite the process and generate that data set that says, here's what coaching impact is having on our culture and our sales funnel. So a full year later, when all three of those things are in place, we're looking at scorecards based on our sales core competencies. And we're measuring those scores and watching them increase as the coaching is taking effect. So when we're watching scores go up and we're watching deals go through the pipeline faster, we're watching people hit quota and above and above and above, Then we say that coaching's working, and we dig back into those competencies every year to say, are these the right ones? Are we focusing on the right specific areas where people can develop? Are we calling out people and building a library of calls when they're doing things at the absolute top level? And are we identifying people who may not have the skill to continue in the role because they can't seem to get to the bottom rung of the ladder on any of the competencies?
And what seems to be in their way when they can't? Is it ego? Is it stubbornness? Is it?
I think sometimes it's just lack of experience or just learn. If we have 5 core competencies, you're going to be investing time and energy into each one of them. You don't come in magically and be good at sales because you have a big personality and are good at talking. I mean, maybe once in a generation that happens, but there's a lot that has to be learned to take effect. So I think a lot of it is we're going to have to give you time when you get here to learn. So that's one group. And then the other group is, I just don't have the aptitude to do this. And no matter how hard I try, I'm probably better suited to do something else. And that's also my job, is to find those people and figure out what does inspire them. And can we get them up to, steady Eddie, mediocre, or do we just need to figure out what direction to take them in? And one of the cool things about On Deck is I've watched a lot of people make that horizontal move to a different team where they were able to take those skills that they have that they're really excited and passionate about and work with a different leader and go in a totally different direction. So we have a lot of really interesting special teams here, a lot of even diversity within our sales organization, but also the support teams for sales. So you can make all kinds of different moves so that your skill set is paired with what you're doing, instead of trying to force that square peg into a round hole because sales is, I'm doing air quotes, easy or easier to do than other functions inside a company.
Well, I think people get into sales, I always say for 2 reasons. Either they can't do anything else or they're money motivated.
Well, for the first one, how dare you, sir? They can also always do something else.
And believe me,
money motivated is definitely, but that's huge. I mean, I'm money motivated, but you have to show me the money to make me do anything these days. But I also plan to earn my keep by continuing to learn and excel in whatever role I'm in. And I think we have to inspire salespeople that way, because if they're only paid on what they do, percent to quota, that's all they're ever going to care about. Which means when you want to change something or teach them something, that's never going to matter. But when the behaviors are part of the compensation model, or when the behaviors are something that are reinforced in the culture, then you can really evolve your sales team to meet the needs as they change in the market.
Yeah, because it's just, if they're not money motivated, I've never seen it succeed in sales, because then they are actors and not salespeople. They'll do whatever they can to get by and keep their manager smiling instead of what really drives the business. And you get to the other end of the spectrum where, as you described, they'll only do what they get paid for, which is not really constructive.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a balance somewhere in the middle, but there's also other roles. There's the front end sales that are the hunters, but then there's also the renewal sales that are nurturing long-term relationships. There's customer success or customer service, where you get to have those relationships and work with it, be customer facing, but not have to carry the quota. So I think there's a place for everyone, and you just have to spend that personal time figuring out, what are you good at? What do you care about? And where can we best use you? Because if we hired you, we've already invested in you. So we may as well maximize your potential while you're here.
And my last question, if somebody was selling you something, what approach works on you?
Oh, I'm the easiest target in the entire world. I think everything is cool. I think everything's cool. I have a ton of material out in the world about myself. So if you want to personalize, you can personalize all day long. You can talk to me about what my mom does. I mean, there's so much information out in the world about who I am and what I do and what I care about. So, but I think if you want to close the deal, because I'll have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, you have to show me real value, and you have to tie that to my need, my current need in business. When I was looking for a coaching tool, Steve Richard, who is a friend and one of my heroes, sold me. He said, "We have the right solution. I'm coming to see you." Came to New York, gave me first class white glove service, made the pitch, sold the value, showed me how I was going to be able to track that ROI back to my senior leadership. Like he buttoned up every piece of the package. And if you do that, I'm going to go with you every time. If there's no budget, I'll create budget. I'll do whatever I can do if it's going to drive value in the business. But if you just have something cool and want to just, shoot the breeze with me for a while, I'm happy to do that too.
How about the decision-making process within your own company? Because I don't know how much sign-off you may or may not have. Let's say you find a new thing that you know has a great ROI? What do you have to do internally to get that actually orders?
We have a lot of stuff going on internally. Thankfully, I'm a part of a team working on our vendor management challenges. But yeah, we have a pretty secure or a pretty hardcore procurement process, especially around our security, since we're dealing with financial data. Any tool that's going to touch that is going to go through a pretty rigorous evaluation with security. So I get ahead of everything really early on in the process. So if I like your tool and I really want to work with you, I'm already going to get the security documentation. I'm already going to be talking to your CISO, chief information officer, anybody I can get on the phone that's going to be able to answer the hard questions. I'm going to be checking your SOC 2 at the beginning of the sales process as we're matching, the needs and the features and benefits and all the conversations early on. So you have to be buttoned up if you're going to work with me. You have to be able to give me all the information early and often so that when we get into procurement, I have everything ready to go so that we can slide from one end of the process to the other quickly. So someone who's buttoned up, someone that knows how to get the right people involved at the right time in the sales process are going to win me over a lot quicker than that salesperson who just has a lot of flash and not a lot of substance. And also, if you don't follow up, you do not get the deal. I was working with a company last year that I was 100% sold on, excited to work with. The rep kind of fell off the wagon, missed our window when I had all the stakeholders ready to look at the tool. And I went with a competitor of theirs because I said, time is of the essence. This was the window that I had to be able to get the right people to look at this, to get the sign off and to move this thing through procurement. And the 2-week window I gave you, you called me a week after that window closed. You're off the reservation for me. I can't come back to it anymore. So yeah, stick with the schedule. Set reasonable expectations and live up to them or live beyond them. I mean, salespeople are always supposed to surprise and delight us. So try to do that. We have tons of ways to set calendar appointments. You can leave voicemails. You can send emails. I check in every day. So follow up is important, and being really buttoned up in the process is important.
And how high does a typical procurement have to go from an economic approval process at your company?
Well, we require at least a VP level sign off on all new contracts. And then depending on what the value of the contract is, SVP or one of our C-level executives has to sign off. So I report to an SVP, so my SVP generally just signs everything, and I haven't asked for anything so big yet that I have to go to a C-level executive for sign off.
Well, I think some listener will try and change that.
You're going to fill up my inbox, aren't you?
I'm going to enable you. Enable the enabler.
That's what we do.
Hey, Chad, I appreciate your time. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your work?
I am Chad T. Dyer on LinkedIn or at ChadTD1 on Twitter, or you can just call me. All my information is available everywhere. If you leave me a message that gets me excited to talk to you, I'll call you back. If you send me an email that's not copy and pasting something off my profile, I'll probably respond to it. And I'm excited to meet people, grow my network, and learn about the cool stuff other people are doing every day.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. I want to start pulling out of the executives that I have on the show what the decision-making process or what they feel it is, because there's that formal hierarchy, political structure, but then there's the informal influence, trust-based decision. And it's up to us to figure out both of these. And what I've learned in the last 5 years of helping sales reps, teaching sales reps, coaching sales reps, is that the knowing is only part of it. It's the practice of it. I think we all know how to work a guitar, but very few of us really know how to play a guitar. And once we learn how to play it, what do we have to do every day? We have to practice it a little bit. What we think of as sales is, we know how to sell. We know the process. We know the hierarchy, the organization, the sign-offs. But do we know how to play it? Do we know how to orchestrate it, how to perform it? And I think we really I connected with Chad today because sales is a performance profession. We look at it as a kind of a knowledge, personality profession, a relationship thing. But even a relationship, it's something that we practice, that we perform at. And sometimes we do good and sometimes we do bad. And this is what I'm trying to teach and help people with. And that's kind of why the courses are a year long instead of a month, because the content itself, you could cram it down in a month, but doesn't mean you internalize. That is why I'm introducing call coaching. getting into accounts, taking case studies of particular deals, and helping reps understand what are the alternatives. There is no one best way, but there are stages, and we know that there's a cause and effect. If you know what's going to happen, then you know what to do. That's one of my laws about sales. And the idea is to force you to think through at least the next step so that you can understand what your choices are and put your chips on the one that you feel has the most likelihood to help you close the deal. Because that's what it's all about. Prospecting is great to have a pipeline, but we only get paid on the deals that close. So we have to get them in. And they're taking longer and longer because there's so many products out there. There's so many choices to take. Everybody wants to buy stuff at companies. Company doesn't want to spend any money. That's the way the game is played. So it's whoever knows how to do it best is the one who's going to get their order through. It's not going to be just that it makes sense or has a great ROI. Those are all ingredients in the little deal we call cake. And if we don't have the best recipe, the best ingredients at the right time and the right way, ours is going to get pushed aside for someone else's. So we have to become better at this. And doing it on your own is one strategy. It'll take you 5 or 10 years longer, but you'll save some money. Oh, you'll save some money? No, I think you'll be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity cost. So go to b2brevenue.com. At minimum, get the free ebook so you at least learn how companies buy. I'd say less than 1% of the salespeople know this. Trust me, I get on LinkedIn and I try and share videos every day on this, and I get reps at 30 years clearly have no idea how a company makes purchasing decisions. They think they just go to a high level. That high level has the right to sign it off, but they check with a lot of people. If you've looked at some of the older episodes. Last week I did one with a venture capitalist, and he shared his viewpoint on it, and it's super interesting. So check that out. Also, make sure you're checking out Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers podcast, where I answer a sales question every day, 7 days a week. Make sure you're looking at the YouTube channel, Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. There's tons of free stuff. But what the courses get you is community, so you get to hear what other people are up against, process, systems, strategies, coaching, one-on-one help. And you can take your deal and say, let's dissect this. Let's look through the alternatives of what you think is going to happen and what we should do. Too many people think it's just one skill. It's strategy, skills, style. All of this stuff comes together because it's a performance. I use this analogy about comedians all the time. Anybody can sit down and write down Chris Rock's jokes, Louis C.K.'s jokes, any Bill Burr's jokes, but nobody can deliver it like them because it's a performance. And that's what sales is. So how do you become better? First, you got to know. Then you got to get some coaching. Then you got to give a little bit of training, a little bit of feedback, and practice a little bit every day. And then you can become really good, but you have to do it. You can't learn how to ride a bike by reading a book. You can watch a video, you can read a book, it'll help you, it'll give you the physics behind it, but you still have to do it. And then when you're doing it, having somebody hold the little steering wheel and the back of the seat, and then let it go at the right time to tell you to keep pedaling and stay psyched. Hey, enough of this. Anyways, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm putting out videos every day on LinkedIn about sales and selling and my viewpoint. Put a little comment, a little share, and tell somebody this week about the brutal truth. Also, make sure you're checking out the show notes right below. There's a sample email in there that can help you justify the cost and expense the training. I can't imagine any manager saying, no, it doesn't make sense. That, they get it off of their shoulders, have their reps become better at sales. And maybe training's the wrong word. Maybe it's deal coaching. Maybe it's skills development. Maybe it's just taking your game to the next level. However you want to justify it, it doesn't matter. So just flip up on the show notes or tap them, whichever platform you're on. Check them out. And make sure you're checking out our partners. Co-Video is crushing it. Video email is the way to go today. Nudge.ai. Also, Gong just put out a great blog post this week on how to do discovery calls really well. So make sure you check out that at gong.io. That's it. We'll see you next time.